Okay, I can hear you now. Why are we wasting time on this? It's going to raise productivity generally and normal capital.
I want to begin early on.
With
You were
waves
not
coming up to the
supposed to be
beach.
an activist.
It was wonderful. There were
So welcome everybody. My name is Radovan Dluhý and this is my independent newscast called Light Above Clouds. And today I have a special guest. His name is Matt Landman. He's an American activist. I will give a brief intro. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to the interview. So Matt created this social change documentary, FrankenSkies, bringing awareness to ongoing atmospheric aerosol injections, chemtrails, weather modification programs, and geoengineering. Matt has hosted a series of conferences, events, and protests concerning the questions surrounding chemtrails, and relentlessly continues to speak out against the ongoing lies in our skies. And you are currently working on a sequel film titled FrankenSkies 2, Climate Change, right? And just before I ask you to add to your intro, I just want to, for Czech audiences, mention that you can watch FrankenSkies in Czech language, or it's dubbed to Czech on a website called pozvednisveoči.com, and I will give the links under the video. So what did I miss, Matt? Add to, I heard you are an actual activist. That was really on your website. How do you see an actual activist?
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I just want to mention that FrankenSkies 2, Climate Chains, not change, but chains, it's like a play on words, because the climate change agenda is, it is a modern day slavery. And so I called it FrankenSkies 2, Climate Chains, like shackles, because of the agenda at play. And yes, when I first started getting into activism, I've made this website, actualactivists.com. And the goal of that was to bring all of the truths together. People were saying, stay in your lane, Matt, only do one topic and become a specialist on that. And for me, truth is a frequency, it's a vibration. And as you elevate your consciousness to the frequency of truth, there's all these other truths that are self-evident. So you can't just be one thing. As an activist, you wear many hats. And so I started off specializing in geoengineering, chemtrails, weather engineering, weather warfare, all of that. But then it immediately unraveled into awareness around fluoride and health and GMO foods and all sorts of things, including even EMF radiation and 5G awareness. And I even created an EMF protection clothing line. And truth is all encompassing. So you can't really just cherry pick. I had a mentor at one point, he said, you can't be half pregnant. And you can't be half pregnant with the truth. Either you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. And it's like that with the truth. You can't just pick one thing and then ignore the other things, because truth is all encompassing. And that's the goal of the website, actualactivists.com. I recommend everyone give it a glance, look it over. Even myself, I've made the website and it's been my baby for some time, and I'll go there and learn something. There's a lot to learn. There's a daily blog, a daily truth on there, and it's broken into different categories of health, geoengineering, inoculations, certain trigger words that I don't use just in case. But yeah, I'm very proud of that, and that evolved into so much more, and expanded my reach to so many different people. And then FrankenSkies 2, I'm working on that, and I'm hopeful it can come out at the end of next year. It's all in God's hands, really. I wish it was already ready, but I think there's more to come in the world that will be included in it. And for updates, you can check that out at FrankenSkies2.com. And this will include the World Economic Forum and net zero, and this totalitarian technocracy that's unraveling, where cow farts and nitrogen and carbon dioxide is being demonized, whereas people don't really grasp the reality of the subject matter. People don't even know that the atmosphere is only 0.04% carbon dioxide, and that nitrogen is important for all life. It's how you grow plants. So there's so much to unravel and so many lies that need to be brought to the surface and truths to be revealed. And yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot has happened since 2017, right? With the pandemic and with the green agenda and climate change and global warming, the incredible push. And I absolutely agree with you that these topics that you kind of brought in, like 5G and fluoride and GMO, and this is all interconnected, and people really need to understand the synergies, how they kind of work together. And I'm sure that we kind of touch on some of that during our interview. I want to talk about your documentary, FrankenSkies, and kind of, I just found it like a just excellent overview and summary of weather modification and geoengineering and chemtrails. I think you kind of build slowly to, and then you get a lot of public materials to support, for instance, the weather modification. You touch on the early beginnings, on Project Cirrus in 1947, then you go to Project Storm Fury and Skywater, Skyfire. You touch on Operation Popeye in Vietnam, where the U.S. Army has used over 80 different chemicals, right, to prolong the monsoon season, and then you go from sort of the chemical use or chemical biological use, cloud seeding. You kind of go to explaining a little bit the electromagnetic waves, right? That you use lasers and some ionospheric technology like Harp, sort of the EMF waves. So yeah, it's fantastic, and I really recommend people watch it. One question that I have: where did you get all the kind of fantastic material, from like the American government TV? That's one question. And the second, like, where do you think we are in the present days? I mean, you were, the film is really 7 years old. You probably were screening it before. So from your point of view, from what you know, how far we have gone ahead with the weather modification part? What's new? What are some of the other advances?
Great question. And for people that don't know, FrankenSkies is a historical, chronological timeline piece that starts in the 1920s. And where I was able to find the footage, primarily through a lot of digging in rabbit holes. So Lyndon B. Johnson, he gave a speech. So Lyndon B. Johnson was the president after JFK, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated in the United States. And in 1962, Lyndon B. Johnson gave a speech at Southwest Texas State University to their alumni at the graduation. And in this speech, he said, "Control the weather and we control the world." And ironically, in 1962, that same year, Project Storm Fury was a 21-year project by the US government that learned how to weaponize and engineer and steer hurricanes, okay? And so through digging into that Southwest Texas State University archives, there was the Lyndon B. Johnson speech in their archives, as well as historical stock footage from the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. military, and that was a wonderful resource to find some of this footage, because people of all different walks of life. And what I wanted to do is create a documentary that wasn't just about me. There's no voiceover. It's actually pretty unique to have a documentary without a voiceover, right? And I wanted it to be able to be watched by anyone. And the history, you sit down and 10 minutes in, no matter who you are, you can't deny the history. Once you realize that these patents were created. And I highly recommend people research on the internet an article titled 175 Patents Proving Geoengineering and Weather Control, because when you realize that these patents have been evolving over time, there's even a patent all the way back to 1891 by the US government titled A Method for Producing Rainfall. So once you start to see the history and the patent evolution, it's really undeniable. And then you can see how the powers that be were able to sharpen their tools and to get to where they're at, which is now, 2024, where almost everything in the weather is weaponized. Okay, anytime that there's a clear blue sky, I go out and enjoy it because I know that it's just a clear slate and that likely the next day they'll be priming the sky and they'll be, coming back with the geoengineering, chemtrails. I mean, all these things are synonyms. They call them stratospheric aerosol injections or solar radiation management. All these words are the same, designed to confuse us. Chemtrails has been given this dirty word. If you use that, you're a conspiracy theorist. Many people that don't know that the word conspiracy theory was even created when the JFK assassination occurred, because they didn't want people thinking outside the box and thinking for themselves. And by othering and ridiculing, peer ridicule, people are able to not think for themselves, and they trust the media, trust the government, and what have you. But nowadays, this Harp technology, which is the use of electromagnetic frequencies and actually intersecting radio waves, just like when you put something in the microwave, there's micro-sized radio waves blasting the food from each direction, and you have intersection of radio waves in the microwave oscillating the moisture, the water in the food, and it shakes it and heats it up. Just like that Harp technology, it first came out of North America, and the top of North America and Alaska, and Harp technology would pick a focal point in the atmosphere and also spray that focal point with chemtrail aerosols, metallic aerosols, and then superheat that. And if you can create high pressure, you can steer jet streams and create drought and even clash high pressure with low pressure and create thunderstorms or tornadoes or hurricanes. But that creation of high pressure and ability to control the weather with Harp has been shrunk down. Harp is a big antenna array the size of like a football field. And it's like 70 antennas, like 80 feet tall. Sorry, I'm going to talk in feet and miles and what have you, and Fahrenheit and whatnot. Pardon me, I'm American. I'll just do that. But now that technology has been shrunk down into what they call doppler radars. And that is also NEXRAD. And these things, they double as weather prediction and weather control. Ironic that they say they're just predicting the weather when they're actually controlling the weather with these devices. They look like giant golf balls or a soccer ball almost. These giant golf balls that cost about $20 million. They're on hillsides outside of cities and towns, and most anyone can find their local one. And inside there's basically radar-looking things that can use frequency to zap the sky, to steer the weather. And now with the use of electromagnetic frequencies, the technology has been localized and even put on ships and put out in the ocean and whatnot. And they're at the right place at the right time for these storms and even earthquakes, which FrankenSkies goes into. But the technology has become so advanced that most all weather, especially extreme weather, it's controlled and weaponized. I've witnessed. There's so much flooding going on now, and engineered hurricanes and all this, and it's important people grasp that it's not natural.
Yeah, Matt, I think that weather modification, I think it's completely undisputable, right? In the summer, I got this very interesting journal. It's called, the title is something like The Historical Foundation of Air Force, American Air Force. And in this, it's a summer 2024, and in this volume, they talk about steering hurricanes and increasing the power of hurricanes during the project China Lake. It's from 1966 to 1975 to destroy Cuban economy. And they admit that they did that, right? And so, I mean, think 60 years of technological advance, if that's what they admit in this, you know, mainstream American Journal of Air Force, you know, I think that, I mean, I just don't doubt it that now you can steer hurricanes, you can increase the power. You know, the material of, since I'm talking about American Air Force, the weather as a multiplier, force multiplier, right? Owning the weather into 2025, that's next year. Do you really think that they accomplished the goal, that they own the weather and control the weather, that we have really virtual weather now?
Well,
Do you think that's been done?
Definitely. If you look at the timeline, which FrankenSkies, the movie, goes through the timeline, which makes it almost, I mean, it makes it undeniable. Cloud seeding alone was very common knowledge in the 60s and 70s. Farmers would even seed the passing clouds with minerals. Like if your crops needed potassium or phosphorus, you would put that up in the sky and it would rain down, not just rain, but minerals. And then that technology was kind of swept under the rug and then weaponized, right? So in 1967, Project Popeye flooded Vietnam, and the United Nations came together and voted unanimously, I believe it was 52 countries to 0, that weather warfare should be banned because it's going to impact neighboring countries, downstream, upstream, and that we shouldn't be able to do it. We've also got patents that evolve over time, going all the way back, like I said, to the 1800s. But in 2003, there's a patent for hurricane and tornado control and steering. 2009, Bill Gates and Microsoft, they came out with a hurricane control patent with the ability to stop hurricanes, to halt hurricanes. And I liken this to maybe the automotive industry when somebody comes out with a patent to have a car that runs on steam. The automotive industry, the car makers, they will buy these patents and then shelve them and not let them come out. So Bill Gates and Microsoft in 2009 got the patent for hurricanes stopping. Like literally you could stop a hurricane in its tracks. And now that technology is not used. It's quite obvious. And what you mentioned, Project China Lake, that's amazing. I wrote that down. I'm learning something every day. This is part of Project Cirrus, where they made a hurricane completely turn around. And that hurricane is highlighted in my movie FrankenSkies. And at that time, the footage, they say record-breaking winds from this hurricane of 85 miles per hour. Now hurricane winds are twice that. And it's not because of global warming. It's because these hurricanes are being created, they're being steered, and they're being influenced by creating outer eye walls and by steering them with electromagnetics and even zapping them and influencing them and making them stronger, like spinning a top. They can get the top spinning and then hit it from the side, kind of like you get the top spinning and you flick it with your finger. They're flicking it with they're playing God and flicking it with their electromagnetic fingers and steering them. And we just had hurricanes come and hit the States that honestly have woken up maybe millions of people, but so many. I've been inundated with questions, and people are really rising to the occasion because some of the world does not know, but we here in the States, especially in the Southeast, where people watch these hurricanes come and form and they're worried about them coming to Florida. There was a Hurricane Helene, and it came and it gained momentum over land. And this never happens. Hurricanes break up over land. Yeah. And what happened is this storm went over land into the mountains, 300 miles from the ocean, 2,300 feet above sea level. And then as it got stronger in the mountains, there it flooded out communities that were rich in lithium and quartz. And there's all this talk of it was a land grab because the high quality quartz is needed for the silicon industry to make chips for the AI revolution. The lithium is needed to make lithium ion batteries for the electrical vehicles. There's a lot of protests for these mines. And so this land has been cleared out. And some people even say it's political, but regardless of why, because there's a lot of whys, why? But it is obvious that the storm was designed to not drop its rain until it was told to drop all of its rain, and it flooded out these regions that never get flooded because they're so far from the ocean. Hurricanes don't do that. Hurricanes hit the coast, they weaken, and they flood coastal regions. So these are very abnormal storms, and they're becoming intensified, and they're being used as this play to say, oh, global warming and climate change. And it's a classic problem, reaction, solution Hegelian dialectic, where they use drought and fire and increasingly strong hurricanes and whatnot to create this problem, which they're engineering the problem. The reaction is fear, which they propagate through the media. And the solution is climate change lockdowns, maybe, but especially they're posing the solution of geoengineering, dimming the sky with chemtrails, which they say are not real yet, but they will be introducing them as this savior solution. But it's a classic, cornering humanity by telling them that they need this solution, which is the problem that they've created.
It seems to me through doing this research for many years that there's a sort of a split in how the commercial sector or the government might use these techniques, these methods of weather modification, and how the military is using it. And we really never know, right? That's the problem, how the military is using it. We know, like you said, the US is full of these weather modification projects, right? I just recently ran across this video from the water committee unit, whatever it's called, in Texas. I mean, they regularly meet and they talk about weather modification in Texas. I saw this video from 2017 that they just very kind of casually say, well, we modified the weather on the area of, I did the math, it's over 100,000 square kilometers, right? Which is much bigger than the Czech Republic. Czech Republic has about 75,000 square kilometers. And so it's very interesting how these things are just public, they are mainstream, and still the media, has a hard time accepting that. And even steering hurricanes or the atmospheric rivers, there are commercial companies like Miles Research. This David Miles, he's an Australian, right? For many years now, he claims that his company can steer hurricanes. He's done this project with the UN in 2011, where he showed in Kenya that he can steer atmospheric rivers, clouds with electricity, with electromagnetic waves. Or this other company, I think it's located in the United Arab Emirates, Climate Global Control Trading, right? They say they can steer weather fronts. And they have this promo, how this big storm, typhoon, hits Oman, right? So, this is all available. So you're absolutely right. And I'm just wondering if this can be done by commercial companies, how much does the military, know? And, do you want to comment on that? Because do you sense that there is a difference between the commercial use and the military use?
Definitely. And if the commercial use is available, then of course, as always, the military is 10, 20 years more advanced than the commercial use. So in the States, we have hydro dams, which it's really sad that these hydro dams are under attack now. It's the only green energy we have left, and they're saying that it's not good and that we need to rewild regions, and they're trying to remove these hydro dams, probably to put in an energy-based economy. We can't have energy-based economy with hydroelectricity, and this is dams and rivers creating energy. And so power companies will seed rain to fill their hydro reservoirs to get the energy for that. And that's talked about publicly in different regions. Also ski resorts, they'll seed clouds and make it rain so that they have their snowpack so they can have a good ski season. There's even a company or multiple companies that you can contact. And if you have the money, you can make it have a clear sky for your wedding day. this is like the guaranteed, if you have about 500,000 US, you can guarantee a sunny day on your wedding day. And if that's the commercial aspect of it, just imagine what the military does. And it's really sad, though, that there's farms that are droughted out, and people say, oh, too bad, you know, just pray for your rain. And then people like Bill Gates, they own the largest amount of farmland in the United States. And there's even the ability to trade weather on the stock exchange now. You can make money off of weather and futures markets and what have you. So farms and small mom and pops, they lose their livelihoods because they don't get rain for years and years, and they're just left to the natural elements. But then ski resorts and hydro dams and all sorts of stuff, they're able to seed clouds for their own bidding, but not for our food. It's really sad. And I think the only option is for people to wake up and for rising consciousness and that 100th monkey ideology, because people deserve to know the truth. And it is self-evident once you start to wrap your head around it. I mean, if we can seed clouds for some reasons, but not for other reasons, the most important thing should be our food, and not having scarcity of food and not having food shortages and what have you. But instead, I think this technology has gotten into the wrong hands. And instead of for our own good, it's being used for nefarious purposes. Also worth mentioning is in the film FrankenSkies, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad of Iran, he comes out publicly years ago and says that there's weather warfare constantly being used against Iran, and that they are droughted out, and that the rain clouds are drained. You can make it rain by putting different chemicals in the clouds. In the past, it was dry ice, which is frozen concentrated carbon dioxide. So they're experimenting on the weather and controlling the weather by dumping concentrated carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and then pointing the finger at us and saying, oh, your carbon dioxide from your cars, we're going to have to put you in 15-minute smart cities and you can't drive as much. Carbon dioxide is not a heating gas. It was never a problem. If you look into sea level rise, it's non-existent. I just watched the PBS documentary Sand Wars, and there's actually sand mafias. Sand is a commodity, and sand is stolen with barges in the middle of the night. And you can't use sand from the desert for construction, for concrete. And sand is a big commodity in United Arab Emirates and Singapore, Malaysia, and these small island nations that need it. And certain islands have sand stolen from them, from their coastal lines. And then they have rapid erosions, and then the rapid erosion from the coastal lines. And then the media says, oh, look, global warming is causing sea level rise. We have to do something about this. It's because of us and we exhale carbon and our car usage. If anybody really cared about carbon dioxide, there would be tree planting campaigns all the time. And I've never even seen that hit the media, that there's a tree planting campaign. If anybody really cared, that's what would be going on. And so I think once we wrap our heads around the truth, it becomes actually self-evident, and it's way beyond the realm of conspiracy theory at this point.
Yeah, it's sort of an absurdity. You know, we talk about global warming and how we need trees, and actually cutting down trees to build solar panels, right, and windmills, and I just read in Scotland, right, they cut down so many trees, so many hectares to build these windmills. So yeah, and there are so many cases. Yeah, this is insane, and there are so many contradictions and hypocrisies around the CO2. I just read now, like, these 500 companies decided to kind of back off from this, zero net deal that they signed up, because they found out that AI is making it impossible for them to be, CO2 neutral. Right. So it's totally idiotic, I say. Matt, if we can move a little bit now to geoengineering, because I feel, or I think that it might be a little bit different than weather modification. I mean, of course, it's connected, but these scientists like Ken Caldera or David Keith and others, Alan Robock, U.S. professors and working for Carnegie Institutes and Harvard, they, for a long time, have been talking about the solar radiation management or stratospheric aerosol injection, about, especially David Keith, right, about releasing, like you have in this film, FrankenSkies, that, you know, he talks a lot about releasing aluminum oxide or sulfuric acid into the lower stratosphere, which seems totally crazy, right? But now, what do you think of, like, we have a lot of, I mean, undisputable proof that weather modification is happening, right? But in terms of what David Keith is talking about, releasing these chemicals into the lower stratosphere, I mean, he says that it's completely possible. You know, he actually says that to re-engineer the planes is just basically no big deal, right? He admits it. You know, to release millions of tons of aluminum oxide, but, you know, do you feel like we have the same, you know, proof that we can maybe take to the court and say, okay, look, Project Cirrus, Project Storm Fury, right? This is happening. But, you know, do you feel that we have the same proof in terms of geoengineering and releasing these millions of tons of dangerous chemicals in terms of the geoengineering?
Well, that's a great question. And the irony that we are being told to put solar panels on our house while they dim the sun with this program and then say, no, we're not doing it, we're going to only be doing it in the future, it's definition gaslighting, really. And so David Keith is Bill Gates' little puppet. He's the minion for Bill Gates, and David Keith says publicly. So David Keith is a professor from Calgary, Canada, and he works at Harvard. And he's a Harvard professor, but he has all these patents and gets paid for this carbon capturing and storage, which is, that alone is ludicrous for me. Let's just plant some trees. Okay, and David Keith even had a project in Tucson, Arizona, in the desert of the United States, where he was to publicly come out in 2018 and release aluminum oxide, different nanoparticulate variable sizes of aluminum, to create an aluminum haze over the city of Tucson, Arizona, to dim the sun and lower the temperature in the desert in the summer of 2018. And I literally moved from Canada to Arizona, and I held a conference and a protest on Mother's Day for Mother Earth, and we had a concert, and we rallied the whole city, and environmentalists came together, and we put that experiment on hiatus. It didn't happen. So there's a lot of talk of, we're going to be doing this in the future, but we're not doing this now. And when they show the photos of what it would look like, all you have to do is go outside and look at the sky. I mean, there's the proof. Do we have like the historical, like military footage to show the courts? I mean, that's not that evident, but the evidence is this. They say that they're going to do it, but they're not. And they say that they're going to likely be using aluminum oxide. Well, groups have come together and tested their rainwater after heavy days of spraying. And if the sky has these grid lines in it and then it rains the next day, people have done really high quality scientific tests of the rainwater, and it comes back with aluminum oxide, very high levels of aluminum in it. Okay, aluminium, I don't know what you guys say. So then people have also tested their soils, and even Rosalind Peterson of the US Department of Agriculture spoke to the United Nations and says, where's this coming from? There shouldn't be these high levels of aluminum in our soil. And people have tested soil that is outside and then versus soil that's has under an awning or a roof or a greenhouse, and the levels of aluminum in the soil outside are through the roof, and there's no aluminum in the soil that's got a little roof over it, so it's a fallout from the sky. People are testing their blood, their hair, and the aluminum is getting in people's brains. The number one cause of death in the United Kingdom now is Alzheimer's, and that comes from an aluminum toxicity buildup in the brain. And you talked about the interconnection of things. Fluoride actually comes from the aluminum industry. When you melt aluminum, fluoride comes off of the aluminum molecules. It's a toxic byproduct that should just be thrown away or put in bladders and buried underground like it's supposed to. Somehow it ends up in our drinking water and our toothpaste, and it is never been proven safe or effective. It doesn't do anything good for your teeth. It actually causes fluorosis and is really bad for your teeth. But what it does is it bypasses the blood-brain barrier. The fluoride gets to your brain, and it'll actually pull the aluminum from your blood into your brain, leading to this toxicity that causes Alzheimer's. Also, cholesterol is really good for your brain, and there's different medications such as statins that reduce the cholesterol and lead to these problems as well. But people have had to take science into their own hands. It's okay, David Keith is proposing doing this spraying, and if that proposition was already ongoing, what would it look like? It would look like what we see in our skies. What would the fallout be like? It would be the fallout just like the rainwater that we get, and the soil analysis and the hair analysis and the blood analysis. I mean, after a while, like I went to graduate school and got a master's in business administration with a focus in sustainability. Sustainability is now a dirty word, sorry. But I took statistics, and the statistics courses that I was in, I really got to learn about the difference between a causal and a corollary relationship. And after you get all of the data and all of the rainwater analysis and all of this evidence, it's not just in the realm of corollary, it is a causal relationship. And when there's patents for spraying aluminum, and there's research and all of these programs that claim that they're going to be doing it, and it looks just like the photos of what they say it will look like when you go outside and look at the sky. What blows my mind is there's actual graduate degrees in geoengineering. So there are people at university majoring in these programs to become geoengineers, but then they go outside and they see the sky and they don't think that it's already ongoing because of the programming, through the media being controlled, through the education system being controlled. If people look into the Club of Rome, Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, all of these different technocratic, the World Economic Forum, all of these different groups have gained control of every avenue of thought, that the way people perceive information and the way people see the world has been cornered and controlled. And it's up to us to learn our own discernment, to trust our own gut, and to be able to research and learn, and maybe not even use Google, maybe Yandex, or it doesn't matter where you find your information, but you have to be able to see that there's going to be two sides of the story. Why would Monsanto already have a patent for aluminum resistant genetics? You know, eventually the writing's on the wall. Could it be proven in the court of law? I mean, likely not, because my lawyers don't get paid as much as their lawyers, right? But at the end of the day, it is self-evident and obvious, and just the patents and the propositions tell the story. Like, they won't say they're doing it right now. They say, oh, we're going to do it in the future. But like I said, what they claim to be proposing is obviously happening in our skies. If you just watch the way that these planes engage with one another, you'll have short trails, and these things prime the sky. Those aren't contrails. You've got high bypass turbofan jet engines that aren't blasting heat into the atmosphere. It's like a propeller that creates lift over the wing. So you see these short trails interacting with the long trails because they're mixing chemicals together. NASA has a quote where they use the atmosphere as a laboratory. NASA has a program called CARE, C-A-R-E, where they don't really care. And it is a program called the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment. They have a fleet of drones and planes and ground-based stations, and NASA has a budget of $80 million per day, okay? And in that program, they do the chemtrail spraying, and what do they spray in the sky? Aluminum oxide, barium salts, and strontium, and they, quote, make noctilucent clouds. There's the Stratospheric aerosol program from the Department of Energy that came out in 2001. It's like hidden in plain sight. They don't use the word geoengineering, chemtrails, or contrails, but you can look up this document easily. You can find it on my websites as well. It's TAPDOE PDF file. And in this document, they outline their entire program. They even spend $5 million the year that it is launched on risk aversion and detection, not being detected, right? Not being called out by the public, not being seen for what they're doing. But in this, if you wrap your head around it, they know that they're going to be to blame for global warming because of dirty energy and coal and oil and gas. And they will already have, back to the problem reaction solution, they will already have the solution, which is dimming our skies by spraying the atmosphere with chemicals. And they've already got the patents and the planes and the drones already ready, and they're doing it. So at what point do we say that when does the government, the US government, actually tell us that they're doing something beforehand? You know, it would be hard in the court of law, but at the end of the day, the facts speak for themselves.
Yeah, I want to add to it in terms of the testing. About 6 months ago, a new NGO in the Czech Republic was founded. It's called Clean Sky, Water, Soil, Čistá, obloha, voda, půda.cz. And they have done a fantastic job. They have organized certified analysis of water all over the Czech Republic, in certified labs. And the results came in about a month ago, and they found that there's just really high levels of barium, strontium, lithium, right? And what's ironic is that, the Czech Water Institution calls this drinking water, right? But they don't test, barium, strontium. And the test showed very high levels of these 2-3 elements. Also, there was aluminum. And I think it's a good time. The head of the NGO asked me to, do like an appeal or a call to all the international listeners who will listen to this video, because they are trying to kind of make it a global like a campaign. They're asking to, because now the Czech NGO have been able to cooperate like with the Scottish activists and Polish and Swiss and then some Slovakian and some other countries. So if people around the world are listening to this video, please do your own tests, do the tests of the water, of the soil. And if you have the results, please send it to this email, watermetal@email.cz, because what we are, this NGO is trying to do is to really raise global awareness about the environmental impacts of geoengineering and what's happening. Yeah,
that's amazing. And activists have to play their part. We all have to become activists and honor the truth with the integrity that it deserves, because the powers that be, we have the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, they have been bought and sold. Okay, these different agencies do not look out for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have aspartame in our food. We wouldn't have fluoride in our drinking water. Even in the movie FrankenSkies, there is the president of Dow Chemical, and he says Agent Orange is safe. We all know that when they sprayed Agent Orange in Vietnam, it was not safe, and birth defects are still happening from it, but they'll never admit the evil that they do, because then they would be held liable for the said evil.
Do you think that they are trying to, you know about the projects Make Sunsets, right? The US startup that, commercial company that is doing some SRM, releasing SO2, right? Sulfuric oxide into the stratosphere with these balloons. And there is this British company. This project has an acronym SATAN, this is just this British researcher doing the same, releasing these balloons. That there's an Israeli company doing it. What do you think of that? It seems like it's almost a joke, right? That if there is this program, releasing, like David Key said, millions of tons of these very dangerous chemicals by airplanes, and they are kind of selling us these few companies that are just sending little balloons. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's almost like, makes you mad that they just kind of sell us on these little things that, okay, geoengineering might be happening, but it's just like these innocent, small events, right, by a few companies, by a few startups. I mean, do you find it ridiculous?
I find it very offensive and criminal, and it's treason. It is actual treason, where we have different rights through Rio Declaration and different things set by our ancestors in past generations, and we have the right to a say in environmental impacts. We have rights that are given. And for instance, I just went and spoke in Scotland at this different anti-geoengineering rallies, and everyone in the UK said it was the gloomiest, coldest May, June, July on record. It didn't stop raining. They didn't see the sun. And then the Met Office, they came out and said it was the hottest June on record because of global warming, and everyone was shocked. How could you possibly say that? It's just definition gaslighting. And the make sunsets, where are the laws saying that this is okay, that they're going to dim our sun, that they're going to take away our vitamin D, which is very important. If you look into vitamin D and how important it is for life of humans, sunlight. I mean, this is common sense, but I'll just say it anyways. Plants need it to grow, and plants, like trees, they're the ones that are absorbing this carbon dioxide, and we need plants for food. We need plants to feed the animals so we can eat the animals. There's all these aspects that are very common sense. And the make sunsets, it's just asinine, because there's a donate button, and people donate money because they're programmed. They're so programmed through these woke agendas or whatever, these different ideologies that are being pushed by Al Gore and Greta Thunberg. I mean, all these different personalities that are given a platform through the controlled media, through the Rothschilds and Trilateral Commission and all these different organizations that own the media. These different treasonous cowards, in my opinion, are given these platforms, and then the public is mind controlled, actually, and they go and they make these donations to get these different chemicals dumped in the atmosphere. Where's the regulations? Where's the scrutiny? Where's the transparency? Right. How do we know what they're actually even spraying in the skies? And what they say is, oh, we're just mimicking a volcano. Don't worry. There was this one volcano, Mount Pinatubo, and I don't even know if this is even accurate, but they say Mount Pinatubo blasted so much sulfuric acid in the atmosphere that it dimmed the global atmosphere, and the temperatures went down a couple degrees Celsius. Well, we don't know necessarily if that's true even, but they say, oh, that's why we're using sulfuric acid to mimic a volcano, and don't worry, we're just doing this good thing. But what they're going to do is throw us into an ice age, or whatever they're doing. There needs to be regulations. There needs to be unbiased international think tanks and scientists and laws and legislation, and people should be able to vote. There's so many things that need to be in place that aren't, and it's all because people are so afraid of these lies of global warming. Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth, made all these predictions that never came true, okay? And meanwhile, he's got beachfront property. He knows that the sea levels aren't going to rise. And then in the school district of the UK, his movie and book got into the curriculum of education of elementary schools and high schools. And in Kent, UK, the school district, parents had to go and sue them and take it to the courts. And the courts determined, yes, this is just fallacy, fiction, and we'll have to remove this from the curriculum. But it had to go that far for the parents to get involved, because the children were being absolutely brainwashed with this fear mongering. And these children are growing up to become adults. And these adults have no logic or reasoning, and they're just living in fear. And through fear, people are controlled.
Mm-hmm. Matt, I need to ask you, it's been kind of in my mind for a long time, kind of researching this subject and looking these different gurus who are in this kind of alternative, independent chemtrails, geoengineering research. I feel there seems to be like a split, like in the US, among some of the researchers. I've been following Dane Wigington or Alana Friedman or Jim Lee, right? And I feel like not all of them, like Jim Lee, for instance, he doesn't think that the chemtrails is really a result of some kind of an intentional release from airplanes. He really pushes the sort of the narrative that it's in jet fuel, right? That it's that the chemical particles are part of the jet fuel, and he's probably right on that. I read some studies from the ETH Zurich or MIT that jet fuel does, contain polymers or heavy metals or graphene and stuff. So where do you stand on that? I feel there is kind of like, chemtrails. Okay, is it in the jet fuel or is it an intentional program or is it both? How do you stand on this issue?
It's not about where I stand. It's the truth. And people say things like, my truth is this and my truth is that. Truth is a frequency and it's not up for debate. It is the truth. Okay. And I don't give my time and energy to debate. And in these spaces, which I've held global conferences, multiple global conferences, getting all the activists together. And it's a shame that the government and the powers that be have different things called controlled opposition. A lot of people are naive and they think, what people have a good heart, and the meteorologists would never be bought and sold, or our politicians look out for us and my vote matters. And I have a much more cynical, realistic view of the world. If you look into some of these names, some of them are actually UN bloggers hired by the UN to spread disinformation. The fact is that the majority of the chemtrails are drones, and the drones have compressed aerosolized chemicals on them, and they spray out of the drones these constituents. And they will spray barium and prime the sky with the barium, which is the short trails. Anytime you have a clear sky, start to look out for the air traffic, and you'll have an uptick in air traffic, an irregular uptick. This is a statistical anomaly. You'll start to see more of these planes with the short trails. And these things are priming the sky, like how you make a soup. You start with a base, or how you make a painting. You make it all white first or whatever on the canvas. And then once they prime the sky with the shorter trails, you'll see the longer trails come out. And then once those longer trails unravel into a haze, they'll zap the sky with ground-based stations, and you'll even see the ripples in the sky. So different personalities, which I'm not going to say names because I'm not that person, because I don't get anywhere saying these people's names and getting in debates. I just honor the truth with integrity, and I stay in my lane. But if you use your own discernment, and if you see different activists speaking mistruths like anthropogenic global warming is a problem, man-made global warming is a problem, that starts to give the powers that be a reason and to do what they're doing. And they're just trying to save us. No, that is not what's happening. There are fleets of drones and planes through NASA, the Department of Energy, and all these other organizations, and they're spraying toxins. They're not going to the normal airports. It takes just logic and reason and your own gut discernment. All right. You don't need other people telling you how to think, how to feel. You don't have to listen to what I say. If you're walking down the street and there's a crazy person across the street waving a gun in the air, are you going to cross the street and be on the same side of the street as them? You don't need an activist telling you that person with the gun is crazy and might hurt you. You get your family, you go on the other side, and you don't make eye contact, and you use your street smarts, because we all have that. It's in our gut, and we have this gut mind connection, and that's connected to our higher self, and we are connected to truth and reason, and we don't need other people telling us how to think, how to feel, how to perceive information, is my answer to that.
Yeah, great points.
Thank you.
I have last two questions. This one about nanotechnology. Do you think that via drones, that part of the release is also nanobots? Some, they talk about the material, whether as a multiplier that I talked about, talks about the smart dust, right? Smart clouds. Do you think we are dealing with some nanobots, some some inorganic stuff also, nanoparticles?
I do believe that there's a lot of different technologies at play. Likely, they don't have to put it in the sprays. They got people lining up to get injected with all sorts of experiments. People are on their 14th booster, and those people have consented to it. I believe that we are in a spiritual battle. I firmly know, this is not my belief, we are in a spiritual battle for consciousness, okay? And the powers that be are absolutely terrified of us. That's why our light bulbs and our clothing and our food and our water and our air, everything are the next generation, the children with EMF radiation and everything, the flicker rate on the tablets, and I mean, you name it, the media, the Disney, everything is under a hijacking. But when we step back and we ask ourselves why, it should be very empowering. Okay, the why is because they are absolutely terrified of our ability to rise consciousness. And when we rise our consciousness together, we are unfoolable. We get our sovereignty back, and we are sovereign beings. And they don't want that. They don't want the consciousness to rise to a certain frequency. They don't want us. They want and need us stuck in a lower vibration, right? So some of these rabbit holes, and the people that are going down and realizing truth and honoring the truth and then looking into these things, there's different things planted in there to scare us, to keep us in a lower frequency, whereas truth is a higher vibration frequency. It's not a lower root-based frequency. So things like nanobots and things that are going to put us in a fear frequency and not want us going outside and have us living in fear, I think that it's a possibility, yes, but I also believe in consent. And I also believe that we are sovereign beings. And if we take care of ourselves throughout alkaline diet and mineralization, I mean, I take a sea moss supplement that's like a seaweed, and it has bladderwrack, burdock, and sea moss. And it has all of the 112 minerals that I need on a daily basis. The human body goes through 112 different minerals daily. They're not putting gold and Einsteinium and these different minerals in your soil. It takes nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium to grow food. And people are walking around very mineral deficient, okay, because they're not honoring their self, okay? They're watching, sports and drinking too much and eating nachos, and the food over here is way worse even. Right. But either way, you know what I mean? They're not healthy and they're mineral deficient. When you're mineral deficient, your body wants to get up to speed on your minerals. Your body wants to find the minerals. And then when they're spraying radioactive cadmium in the sky, and that's similar on the periodic table to maybe magnesium or calcium, then your body is absorbing it because you're so mineral deficient, and you end up with some radioactive minerals or cadmium, radioactive strontium in your bones. You wouldn't even be there if you were honoring the truth and up to speed on your minerals and actually empowering yourself with the knowledge that is readily available, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, because really the wave genome, right? The wave genetics, the science really shows that our cells electrically communicate, that there is much more than matter. We are not just made out of bones and meat. There is just much more, and we are connected to the universe and to our creator. We are creators, right? We are part of this incredible universe, and in a way, these things that are happening to us are little things, right, in the context of the whole universe. But sometimes, it kind of battle with the information. I had a conversation with Dr. Mihalcha. She has a practice on the West, and she told me in an interview that she finds these nanobots not only, or these strange things in the blood, not only of the injected, but also the uninjected, right? And we talk about geoengineering as a sort of a possibility for that. And, I think of the Carnicom, right? I mean, long time ago in the 90s, he talked about this Morgellon disease, right? Which are some kind of some kind of inorganic matter, some kind of bot. So I think it's good to know about this. I think it's good to have this information, but you're right. I mean, we are not helpless beings. And I guess it kind of leads to my last question. What do we do about all this? What are some of the tools that we have?
Well, knowledge is power, but also I firmly believe knowledge plus action is your true power. So if you find somebody in a podcast or someone or a book or resources and it just puts you in a lower vibration, I would question that, because that is the game that they play to control the frequency of humanity. And if someone is leaving you in a place of fear, then I would question that. We have all these resources to empower ourselves through grounding. I mean, if you're going and putting these wireless earbuds in your ears where there's frequency being transacted through your brain, and then you're limiting your ability to be a sovereign being connected to your higher self. Your frequency is literally being hijacked, and you might even be giving yourself brain cancer or something like that. It's impacting your endocrine system, your hormones, and all these things. Honoring the truth with integrity and rising to the occasion of being a spiritual being, an actual activist. I think this is the game that all of us need to play. And I think one of the most important aspects is honoring the next generation, okay? Either if you're a parent or even not a parent, the children are under attack through so many different mechanisms. Teach them how to plant food, how to identify plants, how to be outside. If you're handing your child a tablet where it's got a flicker rate that's putting them in a trance, it's got EMF radiation that's blasting them and affecting their ability to reproduce, and the blue light that's coming off of these devices are impacting their eyes, you're not honoring the truth, you're not honoring the next generation, and we need more people stepping up to just honor the truth, to learn, to discern on their own, to trust their gut, to cultivate more this gut instinct so that they aren't just programmable. I mean, there's so much witchcraft and word magic throughout the world that identifying it, acknowledging it, and then flipping it on its head is so important to shine the light on all the darkness. And we are the light bringers, and we need to know who we are, why we're here, and what we came to do.
Yeah, definitely. We are the light bringers. And that's part of the reason why I called my newscast A Light Above Clouds.
I love that.
So, Matt, I want to thank you so much for this lovely interview and for all the information and for your great energy, for your great work. And I wish you all the best. And I hope we can meet one day in person. Do you have any last words before we wrap it up? Or?
What a beautiful small world it is, Radovan, that you lived in my little town of Ashland, Oregon for 5 years. I think we literally have obviously crossed paths in an energetic way. And I'm so happy to have met you. And I hope that you keep shining your light. And I hope that your viewers can see your light and honor it as well. And, you know, the truth is contagious. And it sets you free, but first it might upset you, but it's all a process. And I hope that everyone is ready for the challenge.
Great. Thank you so much. And you have a nice day. For me, it's evening. And I want to thank all the listeners for listening and watching. And I'll see you again next Friday. So you all have a wonderful day and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Okay, I can hear you now.